You don't look like you belong here. The receptionist sneered, her eyes raking over Lillian Harper as she stood at the Magnolia Pinnacle's front desk. The words, cold and cutting, silenced the Atlanta lobby, drawing shocked stares from guests. Lillian, 52, the black CEO who owned the hotel, didn't blink. Behind her, a manager's smirk fueled the insult. With one phone call, she shifted the room's power. This wasn't just about a room. It was about respect, identity, and a reckoning. Could Lillian turn this humiliation into a lesson for those who dared to doubt her worth? Before we dive into this story, I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from? Drop your city in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe if you believe quiet strength can reshape broken systems. The humid Atlanta evening pressed against the glass facade of the Magnolia Pinnacle Hotel, its 30-story silhouette a beacon of luxury in the city's vibrant heart. The lobby buzzed with the clink of wine glasses and the murmur of conversation. Designer luggage trailing behind guests like polished trophies. Lillian Harper, 52, stepped through the revolving doors, her leather flats silent on the black marble floor. Her charcoal blazer and cream silk blouse were tailored but unflashy, a weathered leather satchel slung over her shoulder. No entourage, no fanfare, just a woman seeking a quiet room after a grueling flight from Chicago for an unscheduled board meeting, as the founder of Harper Hospitality Group, which owned 20 hotels across the U.S., including this one. Lillian expected a seamless check-in. She hadn't braced for a confrontation. At the front desk, Tara Mitchell, 22, tapped acrylic nails against the keyboard, her name tag slightly askew. Fresh from a community college hospitality program, Tara was eager but overwhelmed. Her first month at the Magnolia Pinnacle, a blur of demanding guests and strict oversight. "Checking in?" she asked, her smile mechanical, eyes barely meeting Lillian's. "Yes. Under Harper. Lillian," Lillian replied, her voice calm, honed by years of boardroom negotiations. Tara's fingers danced across the keys, then froze, her brow furrowed. "I don't see a reservation under that name," she said, her tone sharp. "We're full tonight. VIP event." Lillian's smile held steady, though a familiar weight settled in her chest. "There's always a suite held for me," she said evenly. "Owner's block, top floor." Tara blinked, her script faltering. "Owner's block?" she repeated, glancing at the screen as if it might contradict Lillian. "Ma'am, you'd need a confirmed booking. This is guests only." The words landed like a slap, and Tara's eyes darted to the side, where Derek Langley, the 38-year-old hotel manager, leaned against a pillar, watching with a smirk. Derek, ambitious and perpetually on edge, had clawed his way up through charm and calculated moves, but whispers of his replacement had made him ruthless. His tailored suit and slicked-back hair projected control, but his disdain for Lillian was blatant. He'd overheard her claim and saw a chance to flex his authority. Stepping forward, he spoke loudly enough for the lobby to hear. "You don't look like you belong here," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "If you're claiming to own this hotel, I'll need more than your word." Gasps rippled through the lobby. A group of VIPs in cocktail attire froze, one pulling out a phone to record, the red light blinking like a warning. Lillian's gaze locked onto Derek, her expression unreadable, but her eyes blazing with quiet fire. She'd faced this before, lobbies in Dallas, boardrooms in Seattle, where her presence was questioned, her authority doubted because of her skin, her gender, her understated style. "I am Lillian Harper," she said, her voice low but steel-edged. "This is a Harper hospitality property. My name's on the deed." Derek's smirk widened, unfazed. "Then you won't mind if I verify that," he said, nodding to Tara, who fumbled for the desk phone, her hands trembling. The lobby grew heavier. A couple in designer suits whispered, their eyes flicking between Lillian and Derek. A businessman near the fireplace paused mid-call, his curiosity undisguised. From the corner of her eye, Lillian noticed Maya Coleman, 25, a bartender at the lobby's sleek bar, wiping a glass with unusual focus. Maya, who'd grown up in Atlanta's underserved Vine City, recognized Lillian from a keynote speech at her community college 2 years ago, a talk about breaking barriers that had pushed Maya to apply for this job. Her heart raced as she overheard Derek's taunt, her instincts screaming to act. Derek, emboldened by the crowd, gestured to a security guard near the elevators. "Escort this lady to the side while we sort this out," he said, his tone theatrical. The guard, a burly man in his 30s, hesitated, sensing the tension but bound by orders. Lillian didn't move, her satchel still on her shoulder, her posture unshaken. "That won't be necessary," she said, pulling out her phone. "I'll handle this myself." She dialed a number, her fingers steady, and spoke in a clipped tone. "Reginald, it's Lillian. I'm at the Magnolia Pinnacle, and I've been denied entry to my own hotel. Fix this. Now." The call lasted 20 seconds. Lillian pocketed her phone and stood, unflinching. As Derek's smirk faltered, Tara, caught between her manager's orders and Lillian's calm authority, stammered, I'll check again." But the damage was done. The VIP with the phone was now live streaming, the video already spreading on X with hashtags like #HotelDrama and #Who'sHotel. Comments poured in, some defending Lillian, others echoing Derek's skepticism. She doesn't look like a CEO. Lillian felt the sting. Not of the words, but of their familiarity. A lifetime of proving her place. Maya, behind the bar, slipped her phone under the counter and texted a colleague in the back office. "Owner's here. Derek's causing a scene. Get Reginald." She knew the risk. Derek had fired staff for less, but her gut told her to act. Across the lobby, the guard took a step toward Lillian, then stopped as her gaze met his, unwavering. Derek, sensing the shift, doubled down. "If you're who you say you are, show me ID, paperwork, something," he demanded, his voice louder, drawing more eyes. Lillian didn't budge. "You'll have your proof soon enough," she said, her tone a quiet warning. The lobby felt like a powder keg, every whisper and glance adding to the tension. Guests craned their necks, some murmuring about calling corporate, others captivated by the unfolding drama. Maya wiped the same glass, her eyes flicking to the elevators, praying Reginald would arrive before Derek escalated further. Then, the elevator dinged. Reginald Holt, 45, the regional vice president, strode out, his gray suit crisp, his face a mask of controlled fury. "Lillian," he said, bypassing Derek entirely. "My apologies. This is unacceptable." Derek's face paled, but he stood his ground, his smirk now a thin line. Tara froze, her hands hovering over the keyboard. The crowd held its breath, phones still recording, as Lillian prepared to turn this moment of disrespect into a reckoning that would echo far beyond the lobby's marble walls. The air in the Magnolia Pinnacle's executive conference room felt dense, the hum of the air conditioner barely masking the tension. Lillian Harper stood at the head of a polished mahogany table, her leather satchel resting on a chair, her charcoal blazer slightly creased from the confrontation in the lobby moments ago. Reginald Holt's arrival had silenced Derek Langley's taunts, his authority as regional vice president cutting through the chaos. Now, sequestered in this windowless room, Lillian faced Derek, Tara Mitchell, and Reginald, the weight of the lobby's humiliation still burning in her chest. The video of Derek's words, "You don't look like you belong here," was spreading on X, amplifying the stakes. Reginald, his gray suit immaculate, sat across from Lillian, his tablet open to the hotel's booking system. "Lillian, the suite's ready. Penthouse, as requested," he said, his voice steady but apologetic. "This should never have happened." Lillian nodded, her expression composed but her eyes sharp. "It's not just about the room, Reginald," she said, her tone measured. "It's about why I was questioned. Why my word wasn't enough." She glanced at Derek, who slouched in his chair, his smirk gone, replaced by a thin veneer of defiance. Derek, the hotel manager, adjusted his tie, his fingers betraying a slight tremor. He'd gambled on discrediting Lillian to solidify his control. But Reginald's swift intervention had upended his plan. "There was a mix-up," he said, his voice tight. "The VIP event filled the system. I was protecting our guests." Lillian's gaze didn't waver. "Protecting them from me?" she asked, her words slicing through his excuse. "You didn't verify my reservation. You challenged my identity in front of a crowd. Explain that." Tara, the young receptionist, fidgeted beside Derek, her acrylic nails tapping nervously on the table. She'd followed Derek's lead, assuming Lillian's claim of ownership was a mistake, but the reality of her error was sinking in. I didn't know," she stammered, her eyes darting to Reginald. "The system showed no booking, and Mr. Langley said to prioritize the event." Derek shot her a glare, but Tara shrank back, her confidence crumbling under Lillian's steady scrutiny. Reginald leaned forward, his tone firm. "Derek, you were informed of the owner's block protocol. Every Harper property reserves a suite for Lillian. No exceptions." Derek's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. His silence a tacit admission of fault. Lillian, sensing his reluctance, pressed further. "I want a full incident report by morning," she said. "Every detail, who said what, who was present, and why security was called. And I want a review of staff training. This isn't just a mix-up. It's a failure of respect." The room stilled, the gravity of her words settling over them. Reginald nodded, tapping notes into his tablet. "I'll oversee it personally," he said, "and I'll ensure apologies are issued." Lillian shook her head slightly. "I don't need apologies," she said. "I need change. This hotel bears my name, but it's failing my values." Her voice, though calm, carried the weight of decades spent proving her worth. First as a housekeeper, then as a manager, and finally as the CEO who built an empire from skepticism. Derek, cornered, shifted tactics. "With all due respect, Ms. Harper, the lobby was chaotic. I made a judgment call to maintain order." His tone was smoother now, calculated. But Lillian saw through it. "Your judgment was to humiliate me," she said, her words precise. "You didn't ask for ID or check the system. You assumed I didn't belong because of how I looked. That's not a mistake. It's a choice." Derek's face reddened, but before he could retort, a soft knock interrupted. Maya Coleman, the bartender from the lobby, stood at the door, a tray of water glasses in her hands. Her apron was slightly wrinkled, her braids neatly pulled back, but her eyes held a quiet resolve. She'd slipped away from the bar to deliver a message, using the excuse of refreshments. "Thought you might need these," she said, setting the tray down. As she placed a glass before Lillian, she slid a folded napkin beneath it, her movements subtle. Lillian's fingers brushed the napkin, feeling the faint outline of writing. She kept her expression neutral, but her pulse quickened, sensing Maya's intent. Maya had recognized Lillian from a community college speech years ago, where Lillian's story of rising from poverty had inspired her to pursue this job. Overhearing Derek's plan to escalate the situation, whispered to a colleague about leaking a distorted version of the incident to a local reporter. Maya had acted. The napkin held a warning. Derek's calling media. Wants to spin it against you. Lillian tucked the note into her palm, her mind racing. This wasn't just about the lobby anymore. It was a deliberate attempt to undermine her. Ms. Harper, Derek said, seizing the pause. I'll ensure this doesn't happen again. His voice was conciliatory, but his eyes betrayed calculation. Lillian didn't respond directly, instead turning to Reginald. I want access to all staff communications from tonight, she said. Emails, texts, radio logs. If there's a pattern, I need to know. Reginald nodded, his face grim. Consider it done. Tara, her voice barely above a whisper, spoke up. I'm sorry, Ms. Harper. I should have checked properly. Lillian studied her, seeing genuine remorse but also inexperience. You trusted your manager's lead, she said. That's a lesson. Next time, trust your instincts. Tara nodded, tears welling, but Lillian's focus shifted back to Derek, whose silence now felt like a coiled spring. As the meeting adjourned, Lillian gathered her satchel, the napkin still in her hand. Reginald escorted her toward the private elevator to the penthouse, promising updates by dawn. Derek lingered, his gaze following Lillian, already plotting his next move. He'd underestimated her once. He wouldn't make that mistake again. But Lillian, stepping into the elevator, unfolded Maya's note, her resolve hardening. Derek's attempt to sabotage her was a spark, but she'd turned it into a fire that exposed every flaw in this hotel's culture. In the bar below, Maya polished glasses, her heart pounding. She'd taken a risk. But Lillian's presence, calm, unyielding, reminded her why she'd acted. The video on X was gaining traction, comments flooding in, some praising Lillian's poise, others echoing Derek's bias. The battle for respect was far from over, and Lillian knew the real fight was just beginning, not just for her, but for every person who'd ever been told they didn't belong. The penthouse suite of the Magnolia Pinnacle Hotel enveloped Lillian Harper in a cocoon of understated elegance, its floor-to-ceiling windows framing Atlanta's twinkling skyline. The soft glow of a crystal chandelier bathed the room in warm light, illuminating a sleek leather sofa, a marble coffee table, and a tray of fresh figs and sparkling water left by housekeeping. Lillian set her weathered satchel on the desk, the folded napkin from Maya Coleman still clutched in her hand. The bartender's warning. Derek's calling media. Wants to spin it against you. Pulsed in her mind. A reminder that the lobby confrontation was only the opening salvo. As she sank into the sofa, the weight of the day settled, but her resolve sharpened. The suite, designed to her specifications when she built the hotel, was both a sanctuary and a statement. African art adorned the walls, a vibrant kente cloth tapestry, a carved ebony mask, each piece chosen to reflect her heritage and vision. Yet, tonight, the space felt less like a refuge and more like a war room. Lillian unfolded Maya's note, its hurried scrawl a testament to the risk the young woman had taken. Derek Langley's plan to leak a distorted narrative to the press was a calculated move, one that could tarnish her reputation and destabilize Harper Hospitality Group. She needed to act, but not react. Precision was her weapon. Her phone buzzed. A message from her assistant, Clara, flashing on the screen. X videos at 50K views. Boards asking for a statement. Want me to draft one? Lillian hesitated. The clip of Derek's taunt. You don't look like you belong here. had ignited a firestorm online, with comments ranging from outrage to cruel speculation about her legitimacy. She typed a reply, "Hold off. I'll handle it tomorrow." Going public now risked fueling Derek's narrative. Instead, she opened her laptop and began reviewing the hotel's internal systems, searching for evidence of Derek's misconduct. Reginald Holt had promised staff communications, emails, texts, radio logs, but she wasn't waiting for his report. As she scanned the system, a memory surfaced, unbidden but vivid. Decades ago, in a Miami hotel, she'd been a housekeeper, her uniform starched, her hands raw from bleach. A guest had mistaken her for a thief, demanding security despite her name tag. The humiliation had stung, but it also fueled her. She'd vowed to build spaces where no one felt invisible. Now, in her own hotel, that vow was being tested. Derek's actions weren't just personal. They reflected a culture she'd failed to root out. The thought tightened her jaw, but it also clarified her next steps. Another buzz interrupted her. A call from Marcus Tate, a board member known for his caution. "Lillian, this video's a PR nightmare," he said, his voice tense. "The board wants you to drop the investigation. It's drawing too much heat." Lillian's fingers tightened around the phone. "Dropping it means letting Derek win," she said, her tone even but firm. "He's leaking to the press. Marcus, this isn't a mistake. It's sabotage." Marcus sighed. "We can't afford a scandal. Settle it quietly." Lillian ended the call without committing, her mind racing. The board's pressure was a new front in this battle, one she hadn't anticipated. She stood, pacing to the window, the city's lights a mosaic of ambition and struggle. Atlanta, with its rich history of civil rights and persistent inequities, was the perfect stage for this reckoning. Maya's note had given her an edge, but she needed more. She texted Clara, "Find Maya Coleman, bartender, discreet. I need to meet her." If Maya had risked her job to warn her, she might know more about Derek's patterns. Lillian's instinct, honed by years of navigating hostile rooms, told her the young woman was key. A soft knock broke her thoughts. A room service attendant delivered a silver tray, espresso, a sliced peach, a handwritten card from the kitchen manager apologizing for the oversight. Lillian thanked him, but her eyes lingered on the card, its rushed script a sign of panic rippling through the staff. She sipped the espresso, its bitterness grounding her, and opened X on her laptop. The video's comments were a battlefield. She handled it like a queen, clashed with probably a publicity stunt. One user, with a suspiciously new account, posted, "Heard she's firing staff to look tough." Lillian's gut twisted. Derek's handiwork, already taking shape. She began drafting a plan, her fingers flying across a notepad. First, confirm Maya's intel. Second, audit Derek's communications for proof of sabotage. Third, overhaul staff training to prioritize respect, not just protocol. But a new thought emerged. She'd visit other Harper properties, unannounced, to test their culture. If Magnolia Pinnacle was failing, others might be too. The idea felt radical but necessary, a way to ensure her legacy wasn't just buildings, but values. Another memory surfaced, her first hotel pitch, age 30, to a bank in Charlotte. The loan officer, unimpressed by her second-hand suit, had scoffed. "You're not cut out for this." She'd proved him wrong, but the scars of doubt lingered. Tonight. Derek's words had reopened those wounds, not because they surprised her, but because they echoed a world that still measured worth by appearance. She pushed the thought aside, focusing on the notepad. This wasn't about her pain. It was about accountability. Her phone pinged. Clara's reply, "Maya's on shift till 1 a.m. Can meet at bar. Side entrance. Careful. Derek's watching staff." Lillian glanced at the clock. 11:45 p.m. She slipped on her blazer, tucked the napkin into her pocket, and headed for the private elevator. The bar, tucked off the lobby, was her best chance to meet Maya without drawing Derek's attention. But as the elevator descended, a new message flashed from an unknown number. Check your email. You'll regret this. The anonymity screamed Derek. A desperate escalation. Lillian stepped into the corridor, the carpet muffling her steps, her heart steady despite the threat. The bar's dim lights and jazz hum awaited, along with Maya, whose courage had lit a spark. Derek's sabotage was a storm-gathering force, but Lillian was no stranger to storms. She'd built an empire through worse, and tonight, she'd lay the foundation to dismantle the biases that dared to challenge her presence. The fight for respect, for herself and others, was far from over. But as she approached the bar's side entrance, she felt the weight of her own power, unshakable, undeniable, and ready to reshape everything. The Magnolia Pinnacles Jazz Bar, tucked into a dimly lit corner off the main lobby, thrummed with the soft wail of a saxophone and the clink of ice against glass. Velvet curtains framed intimate booths, their burgundy hues absorbing the glow of brass sconces. The air carried a faint scent of bourbon and citrus, a haven for late-night guests seeking refuge from Atlanta's restless energy. Lillian Harper slipped through the bar's side entrance, her charcoal blazer blending into the shadows, the napkin from Maya Coleman, warning of Derek Langley's media scheme, still folded in her pocket. The anonymous text she'd received, "Check your email, you'll regret this," echoed in her mind. Sharpening her senses as she scanned the room for Maya, Lillian chose a corner booth, its high back shielding her from prying eyes. The bar was half full, couples murmuring over martinis, a lone businessman typing on a laptop, a group of conference attendees laughing too loudly. She ordered a ginger tea, keeping her posture relaxed but her gaze alert. The clock on her phone read 12:10 a.m., and Maya's shift would end soon. Lillian's decision to meet the bartender was a gamble, but Maya's courage in slipping her that note suggested she held answers about Derek's sabotage. If Derek was leaking lies to the press, Lillian needed evidence to stop him before the board's pressure crushed her resolve. Maya appeared, her apron gone, replaced by a simple black sweater, her braids loose around her shoulders. She slid into the booth, her eyes darting to the bar's entrance before settling on Lillian. "Ms. Harper, I'm sorry for the cloak and dagger," she whispered, her voice low but steady. "Derek's got eyes everywhere. I heard him on the phone after the meeting, talking to some reporter, said you're bullying staff to look powerful." Lillian's jaw tightened, but she nodded, urging Maya to continue. "He's done this before," Maya added. "Last year, a black guest complained about rude service. Derek spun it to make her look unreasonable. She left, humiliated." Lillian leaned forward, her tea untouched. "Why didn't anyone report him?" she asked, her tone calm but probing. Maya's lips pressed into a thin line. "He's got the staff scared, threatens write-ups, shift cuts. Most of us need this job, me included. I'm from Vine City. Single mom. Can't afford to lose it." Lillian's chest ached at the confession, recognizing the weight of survival Maya carried. Her own early days, scrubbing floors to pay for night school, flashed through her mind, a reminder of why she'd built Harper Hospitality to be different. "Tell me everything you know," Lillian said, her voice a quiet command. Maya hesitated, then spoke, her words rushed but precise. "Derek keeps a private email account for sensitive stuff. I saw him use it once on the bar's office computer. Forgot to log out. He's been emailing someone at the Atlanta Chronicle, feeding them dirt. I don't know the password, but the account's linked to his phone." Lillian's mind raced, piecing together a plan, If she could access Derek's emails, she'd have proof of his sabotage, enough to silence him and force the board to back her investigation. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed, a new email, flagged urgent. The subject line read, "Resign or this goes public." Attached was a draft article from the Chronicle, accusing Lillian of abusing power and targeting employees to deflect from mismanagement. The byline was anonymous, but the tone reeked of Derek's manipulation. Lillian showed the email to Maya, whose eyes widened. "That's him," Maya whispered. "He's moving fast." Lillian's pulse quickened, but her face remained a mask of control. "He's desperate," she said. "That's his mistake." The bar's music shifted to a slower tune, the saxophone's mournful notes mirroring the stakes. Lillian typed a quick message to Clara, her assistant. "Trace this email. Check Chronicle contacts. Discreet." She turned back to Maya. "Can you get me into the bar's office?" she asked. Maya's breath caught, but she nodded. "It's risky. Derek's probably still in the building, and cameras are everywhere." Lillian's eyes softened, acknowledging the danger. "You don't have to do this. Maya, you've already done enough." Maya shook her head, her resolve firm. "You stood up to him. I'm tired of hiding." They devised a plan. Maya would distract the night supervisor while Lillian slipped into the office to check the computer. As they stood, a shadow loomed near the bar's entrance. Derek, his suit rumpled, scanning the room. Lillian ducked lower in the booth, her heart pounding. Maya, quick on her feet, grabbed a tray and moved toward the bar, feigning a cleanup task. Derek's gaze lingered, then shifted away, drawn by a guest's complaint. Lillian seized the moment, following Maya's lead to a narrow hallway behind the bar, the faint hum of a dishwasher masking their steps. The office was cramped, cluttered with schedules and liquor invoices, a single computer glowing on a chipped desk. Maya stood guard at the door, her phone ready to text if Derek approached. Lillian sat, her fingers flying across the keyboard, searching for Derek's email account. The screen flickered, revealing a cached login, Derek's private Gmail, left open from a careless session. She scanned the inbox, finding a thread with a Chronicle reporter, "Harper's unstable, firing staff to cover her tracks. I've got names." Attached were fabricated complaints, including one against Tara Mitchell, painting her as a victim of Lillian's vendetta. Lillian's stomach churned, but she forwarded the emails to Clara with a note. "Secure these. Send to legal," as she logged out. Maya hissed, "He's coming." Lillian shut down the screen, slipping out just as Derek's voice echoed down the hallway, berating a busboy. They retreated to the bar, blending into the crowd, Lillian's pulse racing but her mind clear. She'd secured the evidence, but Derek's proximity was a warning. He wasn't done fighting. Maya returned to her station, her hands trembling but her face composed. Lillian slid back into the booth, her tea now cold. The emails were a weapon, but using them meant exposing Maya's role, a risk she wasn't ready to take. She needed to confront Derek directly, but first, she'd protect her ally. Texting Clara, she added, "Find a promotion for Maya Coleman. She's earned it." The bar's music swelled, a defiant note cutting through the night, mirroring Lillian's resolve. Derek's sabotage was unraveling, but the cost of her presence, her fight to be seen, was growing heavier. As she prepared for the morning's showdown, she knew this battle would redefine not just the Magnolia Pinnacle, but every space she'd fought to claim. The morning sun filtered through the blinds of a compact meeting room in Harper Hospitality's Atlanta office, a stark contrast to the Magnolia Pinnacle's opulent interiors. The space was functional, almost austere. White walls, a laminate table cluttered with coffee mugs, and a whiteboard scrawled with budget notes. Lillian Harper sat at the table's head. Her charcoal blazer swapped for a navy sweater. Her weathered satchel open to reveal a laptop and a stack of printed emails. The evidence she'd uncovered in the hotel's bar office last night. Derek Langley's private correspondence with a Chronicle reporter lay before her, a weapon she was ready to wield. The anonymous threat, "Check your email. You'll regret this," still lingered. But Lillian's focus was unwavering as she prepared to confront the fallout. Reginald Holt, the regional vice president, sat across from her, his tablet synced to a shared drive containing staff communications. Tara Mitchell, the receptionist who'd unwittingly sparked the lobby incident, perched nervously on a folding chair, her hands clasped tightly. Maya Coleman, summoned at Lillian's request, stood near the door, her black sweater replaced by a crisp blouse, her presence a quiet testament to her courage. The air crackled with anticipation, the weight of the viral X video and Derek's sabotage pressing on them all. Lillian had called this meeting to lay bare the truth. But the stakes were higher now. A board member had texted her an hour ago, urging her to settle quietly to avoid a PR crisis. Derek's actions weren't a mistake, Lillian began, her voice steady, each word deliberate. He deliberately undermined me, and this hotel's values. By leaking false narratives to the press, she slid the printed emails across the table, their contents damning, Derek's messages to the Chronicle, fabricating complaints against her and Tara, framing Lillian as a tyrant. Reginald's eyes narrowed as he scanned the pages, his jaw tightening. "This is grounds for termination," he said, his tone clipped. "I'll escalate it to HR immediately." Tara's eyes widened, her voice trembling. "He told me to say the hotel was full," she admitted, her gaze dropping to the table. "I didn't know he was setting you up. Ms. Harper, I just followed orders." Lillian studied her, seeing remorse but also potential. "You're not the problem, Tara," she said, her tone firm but kind. "But you need to learn to question orders that don't feel right. That's how we grow." Tara nodded, her shoulders relaxing slightly, though guilt still shadowed her face. Maya stepped forward, her voice quiet but resolute. "Derek's been doing this for months," she said. "He's targeted guests before, black guests. Mostly made them feel unwelcome, then spun it to look like their fault. I've seen it." Lillian's chest tightened, the pattern confirming her worst fears. "Why didn't you report it?" she asked, not accusing but seeking clarity. Maya's eyes met hers, unflinching. "I tried. Once. Through the anonymous hotline. Nothing happened. Derek's got allies in middle management. They cover for him." The revelation hit Lillian like a blow, exposing a rot deeper than one man's ambition. She'd built Harper Hospitality to be a beacon of inclusion, but cracks had formed under her watch. "That ends today," she said, her voice a quiet vow. "I'm ordering a full audit of guest complaints across all properties, and I'm implementing mandatory training, not just protocols, but real conversations about bias and respect." Reginald nodded, typing notes, his commitment clear. "I'll draft the proposal by noon," he said. But the door swung open, interrupting the plan. Derek Langley strode in, uninvited, his suit wrinkled, his face a mask of defiance. "You can't fire me without a hearing," he snapped, his eyes locked on Lillian. "I've got rights, and I've got proof you're targeting me to save face." He tossed a USB drive onto the table, its clatter breaking the room's tension. "Recordings of staff meetings. They'll show you're blowing this out of proportion." Lillian didn't touch the drive, her gaze steady. "You think recordings will erase your emails?" she asked, her voice icy. "Or your call to the Chronicle?" Derek faltered, his bravado cracking. He hadn't expected her to have the emails. "That's not. You can't prove," he stammered. But Lillian cut him off, sliding the printed emails toward him. "It's over. Derek," she said. "You're suspended. Pending investigation. Leave now." Reginald stood, gesturing to the door, his authority unyielding. Derek hesitated, his fists clenching, then stormed out, slamming the door. The room exhaled, but Lillian knew his exit was only a pause, not a surrender. She turned to Maya, her expression softening. "You risked everything to help me," she said. "I won't forget that." Maya's lips curved into a small smile, but she shook her head. "I just want this place to be better," she said. "For me. For my kid. For everyone who walks through those doors." Lillian nodded, her mind already mapping a role for Maya, perhaps in training, where her insight could shape the hotel's future. Her phone buzzed. A message from Clara, her assistant, Chronicles pulling the story. Legal scared them off. X videos at 100K views. Mostly supportive. Lillian allowed herself a fleeting sense of relief, but the board's pressure loomed. She needed to address the public, but on her terms. "Reginald," she said, "set up a press conference for tomorrow. I'll speak directly. No spin, no filters." He nodded, his respect for her evident. "And Tara," Lillian added, "you're on the training team. Learn from this and help us fix it." Tara's eyes glistened, a mix of gratitude and determination. As the meeting ended, Lillian gathered her satchel, the emails secured inside. She stepped into the office's narrow hallway, its fluorescent lights harsh compared to the bar's warmth. A memory flickered. Her first hotel opening. The crowd's applause drowned out by a critic's whisper. "She'll fail in a year." She hadn't. But moments like these reminded her how fragile trust was. Derek's sabotage was a symptom of a larger disease, one she'd root out, starting with this hotel, outside. Atlanta's morning traffic hummed, a city alive with promise and pain. Lillian's next move was clear: meet the board, present the evidence, and demand their support. But first, she'd visit the hotel's staff lounge, where Maya had suggested a quiet talk with employees could rebuild trust. Derek's shadow still lingered, and the X video's reach meant scrutiny would only grow. Yet Lillian felt a fire kindling, not just to survive this, but to transform it. The cost of her presence was high, but it was forging a path for others, and she'd walk it with every ounce of her strength. The community center in Atlanta's West End hummed with energy, its auditorium packed with folding chairs and vibrant banners proclaiming "Empower Atlanta, building tomorrow." The scent of coffee and homemade pound cake wafted from a refreshment table, mingling with the murmur of local entrepreneurs, students, and activists. Lillian Harper stood backstage, her navy sweater replaced by a tailored emerald dress, her weathered satchel swapped for a sleek clutch. 2 weeks had passed since her confrontation with Derek Langley at the Magnolia Pinnacle, and the evidence of his sabotage, emails to the Chronicle, had forced the board to back her investigation. Now, invited to speak at this grassroots event, Lillian saw a chance to turn her ordeal into a broader call for change. The stage was simple, adorned with a podium and a banner bearing the event's logo. A projector cast images of local businesses, a barbershop, a vegan cafe, onto a screen, celebrating the community's resilience. Lillian's speech, prepared with input from Maya Coleman, aimed to inspire but also challenge, addressing the bias she'd faced and announcing a new initiative. The X video, now at 2,000 views, had amplified her story, drawing both support and vitriol. As she adjusted her notes, a familiar weight settled. Speaking here meant exposing her vulnerability, but also claiming her power. Maya stood nearby, her blouse crisp, her role as Lillian's liaison to the community center a quiet triumph. She'd shared stories of her own struggles, raising a child in Vine City, fighting for fair shifts at the hotel to help shape Lillian's message. "They're ready for you," Maya whispered, her eyes scanning the crowd. "But heads up, Derek's been spotted nearby, handing out flyers, claims you're censoring free speech." Lillian's lips tightened, but she nodded. Derek's suspension hadn't silenced him. Instead, he'd doubled down, rallying a small group of disgruntled former employees to smear her. The MC, a local poet with a booming voice, introduced Lillian, a trailblazer who built an empire and stood tall when they tried to push her out. Applause erupted, and Lillian stepped into the spotlight, her presence commanding despite the butterflies in her stomach. "Thank you for having me," she began, her voice clear, resonant. "2 weeks ago, I walked into my own hotel and was told I didn't belong. Not because of a booking error, but because of who I am. That moment wasn't just personal. It was a mirror of what too many face every day." The crowd leaned in, some nodding, others whispering. Lillian recounted the lobby incident without naming Derek, focusing on the systemic bias that fueled it. "I've been a housekeeper, a clerk, a CEO," she said. "At every step, I had to prove my worth twice over. But I'm not here to complain. I'm here to change it." She announced the Harper Empowerment Fund, a scholarship and mentorship program for Black and female entrepreneurs in Atlanta. Starting with a $5,000 grant, gasps rippled through the room, followed by cheers. Maya, backstage, beamed, her faith in Lillian validated. But the energy shifted as a commotion stirred at the back. Derek, flanked by 2 supporters, pushed through the crowd, waving flyers. "She's lying!" he shouted, his voice cutting through the applause. "She's firing honest workers to hide her failures," the crowd murmured, some turning to look, others booing. Lillian's heart raced, but she didn't flinch. "Let him speak," she said, her tone calm but firm. The MC hesitated, then nodded, and Derek strode to the aisle, his flyers crumpled in his fist. "This woman's a fraud," Derek declared, his face flushed. "She's using her power to silence dissent. Ask her about the staff she's targeting." Lillian met his gaze, her composure a shield. "I've targeted no one," she said, "but I've exposed someone who fabricated lies to discredit me and harm this company's values." She held up a folder. Copies of Derek's emails, redacted but damning. "These are your words, sent to a reporter, accusing me of misconduct. Care to explain?" The crowd hushed, eyes darting between them. Derek's bravado faltered, his supporters shifting uncomfortably. Those are fake," he stammered, but his voice lacked conviction. Maya stepped forward, her presence unexpected but bold. "I saw you write those emails," she said, her voice carrying. "You've been bullying staff for years, making guests feel small. It stops now." The crowd erupted in applause, drowning out Derek's protests. The MC signaled security, and Derek was escorted out, his flyers littering the floor. Lillian resumed, her voice steady despite the adrenaline. "This fund isn't just money," she said. "It's a promise to lift up those who've been overlooked, to build businesses that reflect our community's strength." She invited Maya to join her, acknowledging her courage. "This woman risked her job to tell the truth," Lillian said, gesturing to Maya, who blushed but stood tall. The crowd cheered again, the energy electric, as the event ended. Lillian mingled, shaking hands with aspiring entrepreneurs, a baker dreaming of a food truck, a coder building an app for local artisans. But a new message from Clara, her assistant, tempered her triumph. Derek's filed a lawsuit, claims wrongful termination, boards nervous. Lillian's jaw clenched, but she pocketed her phone, refusing to let Derek's desperation derail her. She approached Tara Mitchell, who'd attended the event at Maya's urging, her eyes wide with awe. "Join the fund's training program," Lillian told her. You've got potential, but you need to own it. Tara nodded, her gratitude palpable. A memory surfaced. Her first loan pitch, dismissed by a banker who'd called her overambitious. She'd turned that rejection into fuel. And now, Derek's attacks were no different. The community center's warmth, its voices united in hope, reminded her why she fought, not just for herself, but for those like Maya, Tara, and the faces in this room, as she stepped outside. Atlanta's evening air was thick with possibility, the city's pulse a call to keep pushing. Lillian's next steps were clear: face the board, counter Derek's lawsuit, and launch the fund with unwavering commitment. But first, she'd meet with Maya and Tara to plan the training program, ensuring it empowered voices like theirs. Derek's shadow loomed, but Lillian's vision was brighter, a legacy of inclusion, forged through the cost of her presence, ready to reshape Atlanta and beyond. The low hum of conversation filled Mama's kitchen, a cozy Atlanta diner tucked in a quiet corner of Sweet Auburn, its checkered floors and vinyl booths steeped in the aroma of fried catfish and peach cobbler. Mismatched plates and framed photos of local heroes adorned the walls, a testament to the neighborhood's resilience. Lillian Harper sat in a corner booth, her emerald dress exchanged for a simple linen blouse, her clutch resting beside a glass of sweet tea. 18 months had passed since her confrontation at the Magnolia Pinnacle, and the Harper Empowerment Fund was now a beacon, supporting dozens of Black and female entrepreneurs. Tonight, invited by Maya Coleman, Lillian was here to meet Eleanor Brooks, a longtime hotel housekeeper whose story mirrored her own. The diner's warmth contrasted with the storm Lillian had weathered. Derek Langley's lawsuit, claiming wrongful termination, had collapsed under the weight of his leaked emails, exposed by Lillian's legal team. The Chronicle had issued a retraction, and the X video, now a distant memory, had fueled a national conversation about bias in hospitality. The board, initially wary, had rallied behind her, funding the Empowerment Fund's expansion to 3 cities. Yet Lillian sought closure not in headlines, but in connections like this one, with women who'd fought the same battles. Eleanor, her uniform swapped for a floral cardigan, slid into the booth, her hands calloused but her smile radiant. Maya joined them, her blouse crisp, now a program coordinator for the fund, her journey from bartender to leader a quiet triumph. Eleanor's been at the Pinnacle since it opened, Maya said, her voice proud. She's got stories. Lillian leaned in, her tea untouched, sensing this meeting was more than a courtesy. I was you, once, Eleanor began, her voice soft but steady. Started cleaning rooms in '68 back when they called us maids. Got mistaken for a thief, a trespasser. Even when my name was on the roster, kept my head down. But I dreamed of more. Her eyes met Lillian's, a shared understanding passing between them. When I saw you stand up to that manager, I knew you were fighting for all of us. Lillian's throat tightened, the weight of Eleanor's words grounding her. I fought because I had to, she said. But you paved the way. Eleanor shook her head, chuckling. We paved together. You're giving kids like my granddaughter a shot. Her bakery's opening next month, thanks to your fund. Lillian smiled, the ripple effect of her work tangible. The fund had backed 40 businesses, from food trucks to tech startups, each a defiance of the barriers she'd faced. Maya chimed in. Tara's running training sessions now, too. She's tougher than she looks. Lillian nodded, proud of Tara's growth from a nervous receptionist to a confident advocate. But a shadow lingered. Clara, Lillian's assistant, had texted earlier. Derek's back on X, posting about corporate corruption. Low traction. But he's persistent. Lillian's jaw clenched, but she let it go. Derek's voice was a whisper now, drowned by the fund's impact and the Pinnacle's transformation into a model of inclusion. Training programs, led by Maya and Tara, had reshaped staff culture, and guest complaints about bias had plummeted. Still, Eleanor's story reminded Lillian that change was a marathon, not a sprint. "I almost quit, years ago," Eleanor confessed, stirring her coffee. "A guest threw $1 at me, said, 'Clean faster.' I went home crying, but my mama said, 'Hold your ground. They don't own your worth.'" Lillian's eyes glistened, a memory surfacing, her own mother, a seamstress, whispering similar words after a bank rejected her first loan. "That's why I built these hotels," Lillian said, "to make spaces where worth isn't questioned." Eleanor reached across, squeezing her hand. "You did, child, and you're still building." The diner's jukebox kicked on, a soulful tune weaving through their words. Lillian felt a shift, not just in herself, but in the legacy she'd forged. The cost of her presence, humiliation, doubt, relentless proof, had birthed something enduring. She looked at Maya, whose courage had sparked this journey, and Eleanor, whose resilience anchored it. "Join us," Lillian told Eleanor. "Mentor our scholars. Your voice matters." Eleanor's smile widened, a promise sealed. As they left the diner, Atlanta's night air was cool, the city's lights a canvas of hope. Lillian's fight wasn't over. New cities, new challenges awaited. But here, in this moment, she stood tall, her presence a beacon for those told they didn't belong. The weight of worth was heavy, but she carried it, and others would rise because of it.